Today marks a significant chapter in my life. As I stand in the living room of my family home, I can't help but feel the weight of all the memories contained within these walls. Jack, my husband, stands beside me, beaming with pride. His excitement fills the room, a stark contrast to the mix of emotions I'm fighting inside. This house, worth over $100 million, is my father's legacy. It's a symbol of everything he worked for. It's the place where his dreams were realized. And now, it's mine. But the moment I had always imagined sharing with my partner has become something entirely different. Jack, for all his enthusiasm, is already laying claim to this inheritance. His every word suggests that this is now our house, and I'm beginning to wonder if he really understands what this place means to me. Despite my protests, his confidence is unwavering, and I'm left questioning the man I married. As I walk through the rooms that were once filled with the sound of my father's laughter, I remind myself why this house is so important to me. My father, a man of incredible wealth and vision, poured everything into this home. From the marble floors to the grand staircase, every inch of it was carefully crafted by his hands and his dreams. Before he passed away, my father entrusted me with the house, making it clear that it was mine alone. At 42, my life has been shaped by the digital world. I work at an online bank, a career path influenced by my parents' values. They taught me the importance of fiscal responsibility, how to value money without letting it define who I am. Growing up in affluence, I never wanted for much, but I was taught to be modest. The rumors about our family's wealth always bothered me. "You must live in luxury," they would say, and I'd laugh uncomfortably. The truth was, despite the expensive house, my life was far from extravagant. It wasn't long before I became the target of unwanted attention. "Sarah, can we come over to play? You must have all the latest gadgets," they'd ask. I didn't have the most expensive toys or the newest consoles, but somehow my family's wealth had turned me into a symbol of it. I didn't know how to explain that our life wasn't what people imagined, and it often made me feel isolated. One incident from my childhood sticks with me. I had accidentally broken Maria's gaming console, and at that time, I had no money to replace it. Maria begged me to tell my parents, but I knew they'd never approve of lending money. I told her I couldn't help, and that's when things spiraled out of control. Maria and Julie started spreading rumors about me, saying that I refused to help a friend simply because I was rich. They made it seem like I had money but didn't care enough to share it. The school found out the truth, but by then, the damage was done. My father, always the calm and wise figure, stepped in. He sat me down and said, "Sarah, it's okay to say no. You don't have to explain yourself to anyone." His words stuck with me for years, especially when it came to relationships and finances. I learned early on to set boundaries, something that would later serve me well in life. After finishing university, I focused on my career and personal life, making sure to keep my relationships free from financial entanglements. It wasn't long before Jack entered the picture. At 35, I met him through a mutual friend. He was a year younger than me, but his sincerity and energy quickly won me over. We started dating casually, and before long, we were married. My parents were thrilled to welcome him into the family, but I had some reservations. A month into our marriage, my father, perhaps sensing the depth of our bond, suggested that Jack visit our family home. I knew Jack would be impressed, but I also feared his curiosity would lead him to ask questions about the house and its value. My father's wealth was something I had always kept separate from my personal life, and I wasn't sure how Jack would handle it. When Jack stepped into the house for the first time, his reaction was exactly what I had anticipated. He was in awe of the grandeur, and for the first time, I felt an unease about what he might think of me. As we drove home, Jack's questions about the house and its value became harder to avoid. I tried to downplay it, but his persistence made me uncomfortable. Then, the news came. My father had been diagnosed with advanced pancreatic cancer. The shock was overwhelming. I hadn't noticed the signs: his sudden weight loss, the change in his demeanor during our last visit. My mother and I rushed to the hospital, and there, we learned the devastating truth. The doctors told us that nothing could be done. My father's days were numbered. As we spent time with him, my father, ever the optimist, asked us not to mourn his passing, but to cherish the time we had left. He talked about his hopes for our happiness and the legacy he had created with the house. It was during those days in the hospital that I promised him I would keep the home in the family, that I would honor his dreams. Jack, however, didn't seem to share my urgency. He continued to ask about my father's financial situation, and his suggestions about getting legal advice to protect his interests made me uneasy. I tried to push back, but the tension between us grew. Jack's interest in my father's wealth seemed to increase with every visit, and I could feel him pushing boundaries I wasn't ready to cross. Months later, my father passed away. The funeral was an emotional whirlwind, but amidst the grief, the matter of the inheritance couldn't be avoided. I was named as the sole heir to the estate. The house, valued at $5.5 million, was now mine. But that's when things started to take a turn. Jack's interest in the house grew more intense. He talked about moving in, making plans, and even suggested we could sell it. I was taken aback. This was my father's home, his legacy. I had no intention of sharing it, not in the way Jack wanted. But the more I resisted, the more Jack seemed determined to press his claim. His requests became more frequent, more demanding. It didn't take long for me to realize that Jack wasn't just interested in the house for sentimental reasons. He saw it as an opportunity, something that could benefit both of us. When I refused to let go of the house, Jack's frustration grew. The tension between us reached a breaking point, and I started to question everything about our relationship. Then the bombshell came. Jack told me he had changed the ownership of the house to his name. He showed me legal documents as proof. My heart sank. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. He had taken matters into his own hands, without my consent. In that moment, everything I thought I knew about Jack shattered. He admitted that he had hired a lawyer to facilitate the transfer of the property, believing it was the right thing to do. But his actions had crossed a line. The trust we had built was gone, and the betrayal was clear. Jack's explanation didn't make things better. He claimed that I was being unreasonable, that we could still make the house ours if I would just agree to his terms. He even suggested divorce if I refused. It was as if he had no understanding of what this house meant to me, or the lengths I would go to protect it. The next day, he demanded the keys to the house. When I refused, security was called to intervene. I presented the true ownership documents, making it clear that the house was mine. Jack's anger and confusion were evident, but the truth was undeniable. He had fallen victim to a scheme orchestrated by a man named Jerry, a so-called lawyer who had convinced him to transfer the property. Jack had paid Jerry $360,000 to make the change, believing it would benefit him. In the following weeks, Jack tried to salvage his mistakes. He apologized, but the damage was done. He had shown me who he truly was, and I could no longer trust him. I filed for divorce. Months passed, and life slowly began to return to normal. My mother and I decided to turn the family home into a rental villa. It became a place for people to celebrate, to make memories, and to experience the warmth my father had always envisioned for it. The villa became a success, and in time, it became a symbol of resilience, a reminder of my father's legacy. Jack, on the other hand, had hit rock bottom. His life had unraveled after the divorce. But eventually, he started to rebuild. He secured a new job, and although I never saw him again, I heard through mutual friends that he was doing better. The news brought me peace. It reminded me that everyone has their own path to walk. The villa became not only a place of refuge for others, but also for me and my mother. It allowed us to honor my father's vision, and in doing so, we created a space filled with joy. The success of the villa proved that despite the betrayal, there was still a way forward. It was a testament to the enduring spirit of family and the legacy that would continue to live on.